Welcome to the Giving It Away podcast. I'm the Hedgehog Man, also known as Craig. And my guest today is Leena. Leena. I'll get it before the end, I promise. Right. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm originally from Finland. I was 26 when I left there, and I was 8 years old when I decided that I don't want to live in this country. And Finland is a beautiful, safe place, and I had a very normal family.
Right.
But I never fit in. I never felt like I fitted into Finland or into my family. And now I understand because of my neurodivergence and how differently my energy moves to them. They're very stoic and calm. I'm not.
Yeah.
And I always made it mean that I'm wrong. So I always had this feeling in me that I need to be fixed. There's something in me that it's not okay.
Right.
And fantasy creation was the first way of fixing it, was just, creating these worlds in my head, what was better than what was in front of me.
Right.
And then when I was 12, I found alcohol. Oh, it was just everywhere. Finland is a place very much like UK.
Do they binge drink over there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like even worse than here.
Really?
And like
worse than Newcastle? Wow.
Yes. Yeah, it really. And being a functional alcoholic is just a normal thing.
Right.
Like to me, growing up, anybody who, you were only an alcoholic if you looked like a hobo or you were beating up your wife or you were losing your job, right? But anybody else was just having fun. And that's what I thought for decades that I was doing, when in fact I was sleeping with a bottle of wine next to my bed and needing to take a swing of it because I couldn't be with my head, right? But I didn't realize that it was a thought, because when you grow in these countries where it's really acceptable, it's just the norm. Or like waking up with after 2 days of binge drinking and it's like, don't want that hangover and starting to drink again. Just normal, right? And really acceptable in everywhere I grew up.
Well, alcohol's the only drug really where if you don't drink, you need a reason why. Yes. People say, "Oh, why not?"
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to drink? No, I don't drink. Oh, why not? If somebody said to you, "Do you want some heroin?" and you said, "No, I don't," they wouldn't be like, "Oh, why not?"
Exactly. You need to justify yourself to not take this thing. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I was 12 years old, and back then, like, it was horrible how it was. Really, now looking back, I loved it back then. But like, adults were facilitating us getting shit-faced. Right. When we're 12 and 13.
What's the legal age to drink over there?
18.
18 still.
But it was so normalized getting pissed. And I was like, I didn't need to steal any of the alcohol. I just was in like barbecues and things like that. Not my parents, but other adults in my life. And there were discos when we were 12, 13 years old, where we all were just falling around and like puking everywhere. And they just facilitated it all to us. So, and I remember not liking alcohol back then, but I loved the feeling of it. And I remember thinking that, if there would just be this thing that I wouldn't need to put myself through this drinking of this horrible thing, if I could just take this thing, and I would feel great. And that's what, a few years later I found. And it's always felt like drugs were a solution. They calm down. My head is so noisy place. And it spirals into very, very negative places very quickly. And alcohol just numbed it out. So did drugs, right? It made me feel calm inside, or I was very socially awkward. So it made me be able to connect with others. Right. We all know that it's not true connection, but it feels like, right? And it feels like you can fit in. And I was very shy, so I could talk to people, and, I felt confident. And it felt like a solution. And for many years, it was my drug use and alcohol use. It was keeping me away from feeling what I was feeling. I was totally numbing my internal experience with it all. And it worked, right? Yeah. It worked. And that's why when I found recovery a few years ago, that's why it was beautiful to finally get into a real connection with myself, but it was also very, very difficult because for 40 years I hadn't known how to feel, how to have my emotions. So then taking away those blankets, the security blankets that those substances gave me, it was very hard. But yeah, good thing there are support groups and other instances that can help with that.
So what was the first drug that you ever took?
Drug. What's the first drug that I ever took? Funny, I don't remember. But at the time...
You must have been shit-faced.
For sure. Weed, most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I did a lot of weed and ecstasy and amphetamine for many years in my 20s. And I always thought that I'm having fun. Right? I always mask my using with I'm the party girl and this is my social life and this is what we do, right? That's why, like, that was the start of my recovery when lockdowns happened and I wasn't really using hard drugs anymore. Then I was smoking a lot of weed and drinking a lot of alcohol. But then all of a sudden all the bars were closed and everything, I was still drinking like hell. And I realized this isn't okay, right? Yeah. When the social life went away, then I finally realized that I actually have a problem.
I think that my 20s probably were fun still. It was when everybody else in my social circle started getting married and having children and getting promotions at work and careers and stuff like that. And I'm still out partying.
Yeah.
And I know when I noticed it was if there was something not right is when the people in my social circle kept getting younger and younger and younger and younger because my friends were out doing other things.
Yeah, right.
So what were you doing during your 20s besides just taking drugs?
What I was doing, I was still living in Finland and I was deeply unhappy and I was doing jobs that I hated.
Right.
Because I didn't finish school because of deep anxiety patterns and just also because school was either too easy or too boring. Yeah. And I didn't see the point. And I remember being a kid and looking at all the adults in my life and I'm like, I don't want to be that. This life that you all are living, I don't want anything to do with being adult is that. Yeah. I don't want anything to do with it. And then I was like looking at all the schools and everything. It's just, those are all leading up to some boring ass job that I don't want to be doing. So then I just rather did drugs and over there just did some jobs and which also actually, I was so ashamed of all those years of wasting my life for years and years and years, just getting high. You know, that was my main goal of just getting high. But what it actually served me was I got out of Finland because of it, because I was so unhappy. If I would have gotten a proper education or I would have had some job that was bearable, I would still be there, you know? And so I'm happy that I messed up my life the way I did. So it got me out of there because I was so unhappy there and I never fitted in and Were you able to keep jobs back in those days? Yes, because my addiction is always, even then, even if I look like they were like cleaning jobs and things like that, they were not, you know, which are all respectable jobs, but it's easier to get away with shit when you do jobs like that. Yeah. But yeah, so I've been always my addiction has been this game of how much I can get away with. And and it's always been this like pushing the boundaries, like how much stupidness can I create and still get away with? And I got away with a lot of things. So I never lost anything, not at jobs, nothing. I'm sure I lost friends because of the way I acted and my volatile emotional landscape and the way I spoke to people, but not directly because of the drugs. I didn't lose anything. First of all, when did you leave Finland? I was 26 years old. Right. I left. And did you come straight here or? No. No? Oh, have I? Yeah, that's the story. Come on. All right. So I was 26 and I finally realized that I need to get out of this place, that I'm just fulfilling somebody else's dream and this is not my life. Yeah. Like I'm not living for myself. I'm living for somebody else and I'm not even fulfilling their expectations of me, not by mile. So what am I doing here? And then I went online. I used to ride horses. So I went online and I went to find a job and it happened to be in Belgium.
Right.
I moved to Belgium, and then I was in Belgium for a year, and I happened to have a Finnish flatmate, and she was moving to Switzerland, and I said to her like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss you," and she's like, "Well, come with me," and I said, "Okay then," and I moved to Switzerland. And then I moved around in Switzerland for a few years, and then I had enough of Europe, but I moved to New Zealand because it felt like far enough.
Right.
And then I was in New Zealand, and then I one morning woke up and decided to go back to Switzerland. My life was ADHD heaven for many years.
Yeah.
Like I was very free and just living for myself. I think I was taking back all those years of trying to fulfill somebody else's dreams.
Yeah.
And I was just doing things for myself, and it was beautiful. And then I got back to Switzerland, where I lived for a few years again. And then I met my now ex-husband, and his job then took us around the world a few times again and landed us here.
Landed in Newcastle of all places.
Yes.
Do you like it here?
I love it here, yeah.
There must have been some dark times during this.
Like I said, back in my 20s when I was really like doing a lot of synthetic drugs and yeah. And it was, like I said, I was masking it under this.
What's a synthetic drug?
Like not natural,
right?
So
all right.
chemical shit
all right.
that we put in our bodies. So yeah, I was always thinking like in such a denial of it all that I'm just having fun with my mates, which I was in the beginning. You know, it is fun, right? When you go into all these raves and things like that.
We wouldn't have let it take over our lives if it wasn't fun at one point.
Exactly, right? But as with addiction patterns, it just starts to take from you instead of give. And the highs are shorter and shorter, and the lows are longer. And to me, it was, now looking back, like I'm from a little tiny town in the middle of buckfuck nowhere in Finland. Right. And like my dad's the mayor, or was the mayor of the place. Everybody knows everybody. If they don't know me, they know of me, and they know my family. And like, it's such a small community. And and there's me wearing these ridiculously bright clothes. My hair was short, and I dyed it all sorts of colors, and they was like screaming that look at me, notice me, and they still didn't. They didn't notice me.
Yeah.
And it was like, now looking back, I was damaging myself trying to get them to notice me, because that was my pattern all through my childhood of not being seen, not being understood, not feeling a proper connection, and no fault of theirs. Like they're lovely people. They're just wrapped up in their own lives and in their own traumas and the cultural patterns of them. So so I was having fun and finding these ways of getting away from myself and getting away from them, and then at the same time screaming for them to notice me. And they didn't. And at somewhere there, like what I draw, because we draw conclusions of our world around us, and I made it mean, and we make it mean something, and we take on these beliefs, often negative beliefs about ourselves. I made it mean them not noticing me all my life, that I'm not worthy, right? And that's where in the deepest depths of my drug use, I didn't feel like I had any value. I was doing so much amphetamine and all the pills and everything, like half of my face was drooping down and one of my pupils was huge. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and just like, oh, that's a problem, and not doing anything about it. Just not capable of caring enough about myself to actually go and do something about it. I was in effect, I was killing myself without wanting to. Like, I didn't realize that I wasn't damaging myself to like, I need to die. It was so deep subconscious beliefs that I was just like, there's no, if I die or not, doesn't matter.
Yeah. And
then I was ODing and taking so much pills, and just, there was one of my now understanding about higher power moments. I had a party at my house, and we went for another week that we've been staying up and going around the country in all these raves, and ended up at my place still doing pills. And I just like, I feel a bit sick, and I went to the toilet and throwing up. And then I remember being in the ceiling looking down at myself. I was like, oh, there she goes. And then something jumped on my chest, and I was like, you're not going anywhere. And I came back in my body and just got up, looked at myself in the mirror, and I remember looking like fucking dead. Like there was just no life in me. And I got up and I just went back into the party and didn't say anything to anybody. Like it didn't matter if I lived or died to me. That was where my self-value was at the time. And it didn't take, I don't really have an understanding of the timelines, but I'm guessing that it didn't take that long after that for me to start getting out of those drugs. And for me, it was why I stopped back then was my friends were starting to die around me.
Yeah.
And some of them were doing heroin and things like that, which I'm really happy I had a big no-no for. That much sense that that's not a thing I do. Not that there was a lot of it around, but I really saw how they were, even my crazy head was like, they're not having fun. That's not fun. Yeah. Like I couldn't bullshit myself into it. And people were going crazy and like, I don't know, drug dealers behind their doors with axes and things. I'm like, this is not fucking fun anymore. Yeah. Like I need to stop. And I did, and I just smoked weed for and I actually I was sober for a while, and I remember the feeling of being able to look people in the eyes when I stopped all those drugs, right? Like, because in that little town, right, like I was always like, I was ashamed of like if people see, like that was fucking obvious miles away, but for me, if I look them in the eyes, they'll see that I'm shot at my high. So I would go around like this, and then I could look people in the eyes and actually stand and let myself be seen.
You mentioned ADHD. Are you diagnosed?
No, but spend 5 minutes with me if you know anything about ADHD. It's quite obvious.
So when did
I'm actually waiting for a diagnosis. I've been on the waiting list for 4 years.
Yeah, I'm going through something similar myself. I was diagnosed at 36, and then I was given the medication, which was lisdexamfetamine.
I know, right? It's crazy. And they give this stuff to kids.
And I was on speed at the time. So I was like, it can't be the same as speed. So I picked the medication up. I thought I'll start it the next day. Yeah. At that time, I wasn't on speed. I'd done about 6 weeks off it.
Yeah.
And but I was still drinking and doing coke and stuff, but that to me was clean. No. That to me was being clean at the time. And I took one of the tablets, and and then I left the house and I went to walk to my friend's house, and I got halfway there and the tablet kicked in. I was like, ooh, this is like speed. I turned around, walked back home, and just started eating handfuls of them. So I've never taken the medication as prescribed. Yeah. Every time I got the 30 days medication, I would eat it in 4 days tops. And I can remember the doctor saying it was when it was prescribed, don't chew them or anything, because it won't work as it won't like. They're meant to dissolve slowly in your system in the last 12 hours. And I was thinking, don't tell me that. So I was just opening them up and putting them in a cup of coffee, six days worth in a cup of coffee every 8 hours. So I don't know if it works for me or not, because I had to go for regular heart checkups to stay on it. And I was going for heart checkups on illegal speed and that stuff. So they just took it straight off me. Yeah. And now I'm sober and I want to get on it. I'm on a 3-year waiting list to see the specialist, who's the only person who can prescribe it.
Yeah.
So when did you realize that you had ADHD?
A few years ago, when a friend of mine was going through her discovery about it, and she was talking about all these ADHD traits, and I remember being like, what's she talking about? There's nothing wrong with you. I'm like that. And she was so good. She was just like, okay, then until like weeks later I clued in, like, oh, I'm like that. And then with my ADHD hyper, it's been I read the whole of fucking internet about ADHD, because it just,
I did the same,
right? Because it's opened up to me, because people are like, oh, I don't like labels. It's not a label to me. It gave me a understanding why I have never felt like I fit in. Why it's always felt, because I made it mean that I can't tidy up and I can't stay focused and I can't do this and I can't do. I made it mean that I'm an imbecile and incapable as a human being. And when I understood that all these things that are more difficult for me is because of the way my brain works. So it's not that I'm stupid. It's just if I try to do things the normal way, I will fail. So I have spent so much time and energy which I have a lot, in constructing my life around how my brain works.
Yes.
Right? Instead of trying to do the normal way.
Yeah.
And I can't do it. And then I will always feel like I'm failing. So I loved finding out about my ADHD.
Me too. It was a spiritual awakening almost in itself.
Yes.
It was just like clarity on the last 30 odd years of my life.
Exactly.
It was quite weird because I'd split up with a girl I'd been with for 17 years and I got an email from her, and the email, somewhere in the email said, oh, by the way, I think you might have ADHD. I didn't know what ADHD was. So I was telling my friend this, and my friend went, do you not know you've got ADHD?
Have you met yourself?
And I was like, I don't know what it is. I've heard
Mm.
ADHD, but I couldn't even have told you at that time what it stood for. And I started researching it, and I was like, oh, yeah. And then I remember I spoke to my dad about it, and I said, was I ever checked for ADHD when I was younger? And he started shouting at me. Now, he never raises his voice. He's a very calm person. He was like, there's no such thing as ADHD. And the back of my head went, if this is how they acted when I was a child and it was suggested, that might be why I'm not diagnosed. And then when he read up on it, like, he apologized to me. He was like, this is you. He says, it's like reading about you.
Yeah.
It's like this was written specifically about you.
That's it.
And I was like, well, yeah, technically it is.
Yeah, exactly. It is me. Yeah. And then I'm autistic as well.
Right.
With my autism comes, it's sometimes hard. Like, I can't connect beautifully with people, but with people that are on the same wavelength than me, then I will talk to you for days and days and days. But if you are talking about something that doesn't interest me, I can't fucking have any, not interested.
It's like a light switch, obsessed, obsessed, walk away mid-sentence.
Oh, totally. And then what my neurodivergency in as a whole brings a lot of sensory. I have these extra sensory things going on.
Yeah.
My hearing is very sensitive and things like that. And now looking back, now understanding all of that, that's what I was masking. That's what I was self-medicating, right?
Well, when I was younger, I always felt like I was different. And then when I learned about ADHD, I was like, I was. But not in the way I was told I was different, which I was told I was an idiot.
Yeah. Oh, I thought, like, through school, I knew I'm smart because I didn't ever read to any exams because it was so boring. I just not aced them, but like, okay, averaged all of it. But like sitting there and I'm like, I can't take this stuff in. And finish school, as much as it's brazed over in here. Back in the 80s and 90s, it was shit. Like, really shit. It was so boring, nothing creative, nothing. And it's not about who you are. It was take this information and swallow it. And that's not how my brain works. If you make me sit there and talk about something boring, my brain is over there looking at those fucking squirrels and whatever, anything more interesting. If there's nothing interesting in here, I'll make it up in my head. So I wasn't taking any of it in, and I made that mean from a very, very young age that there's something wrong in me.
Yeah.
That I'm stupid, that I can't just, like, people are talking at me and I just can't understand them. And it was just because they were so freaking boring.
I don't know the alphabet. Because when I was a child and they were teaching it, I was in the corridor for being naughty. To this day, there's about 24 letters in the alphabet if I say it. And the two I miss out are always different. And it's crazy because I wasn't allowed to do anything when it came to like options in high school, like anything creative, like music or anything like that, because I was underachieving in everything else.
Yeah.
And so the things I would have been great at, well, it turns out I was good at.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let me entertain them.
And it's just like school system in general. It's toxic for everybody, in my opinion. But if there's a child who needs movement, who needs needs stimuli, needs to move their body to be able to take in information, especially if it's not an interest to them, and then they tell you to sit still and stop squirming and stop fidgeting and stop doodling, which is like, no, give them all the fidgets, give them like, bouncy ball to sit on, and then they can listen to your boring ass lessons.
I mean, I don't think I still wouldn't listen. So how old were you then when you found out about ADHD?
A few years ago.
Oh, just a few years ago.
Late early 30s, yeah. No, it's changed my life, completely changed my life, and the way I do anything. And the best thing that it gave me, well, outside just understanding myself and being able to build my life in a way that actually works for me, it was this softness. The way I was talking to myself was horrible. Like everything, like, if you see my office, there's a sea of teacups there. And, and things like that. And
I had to severely tidy up in here for you coming today.
Right? And that's why I work from home, and that keeps me on top of things. Otherwise, it was just, you couldn't move in there. But and I was always blaming myself for it. It was nasty the way I was talking to myself. But now I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, yeah, you'll sort it out when somebody's coming over or something else, because that's the thing about this brain, right? It needs a reason to do anything boring.
It needs an instant reason to do something boring.
Exactly. So I'm not anymore forcing myself and trying to blame myself and shame myself into things. I find strategies and systems and processes that work for me, and with kindness and softness. So, yeah.
So do you want to talk a bit about your recovery?
Yes.
One of the words I've heard you use to describe yourself is shy. I can't imagine you being shy. I've known you for 9 months now, and shy isn't how I would describe you.
I also feel very comfortable with you. You're in the tick list that I want to talk to.
Well, one of the things I realised as well when I found out about ADHD is I thought, I can normally tell if I like somebody when they walk in the room or not.
Yes, exactly.
And I realised most of the people in my life that I like have ADHD, whether it be diagnosed or not. And I started talking to them about them, talking to them because, well, you become obsessed with ADHD, don't you, when you first find out about it. And the more I spoke to them, they were like, oh, yeah, I've been diagnosed, or I've had it since I was a child, or some of them said, no, but I think I've got it. And I was like, oh, right.
Yeah, now I can spot them when they walk through the door. It's like, no, like,
and it's a good energy, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And that's what, like, how, if you'd ask me to describe my ADHDism, it's just a lot of energy. And I love my energy.
I love my ADHD. I wouldn't swap it. When people call it a disability or a disadvantage or something like that, or they say I suffer from ADHD, I don't suffer from anything.
I don't anymore.
Not with ADHD.
No. Yeah. Now, because what I've given, like, to answer your question about me being shy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because before, what I made it mean, because I was such a huge ball of energy when I was little, and my parents had their own, sensory issues and, work stress and whatever stress, and they couldn't handle me because I was so a lot of energy, right? And what they in school tried to do to me is contain that energy. No, not like that. And it's I can't remember the numbers, but ADHD, child with an ADHD will hear, don't do that, you're wrong, don't, like, way more than a normal child. And that what most of us make it mean is, I'm wrong, I can't do that, I should be smaller. And that's what I tried to do. And I made, like, RSD, do you know about RSD?
No.
Rejection sensitive dysphoria. It's basically a phobia of rejection.
Right.
And it's a ADHD, it's often
I think I have that.
You think?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Read about it. Like
just off the description of it, I think I have that.
Yeah, many ADHDers do, because, and the science says...
I'm terrified to ask any form of question to anybody the way I don't want the answer to be no. Terrified of it. And it could be something really simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, for me, it was like doing something like this, it would have been deadly to me a few years ago, because showing myself and putting myself out there, it exposes me for people to not like me, to people rejecting me, people thinking that I'm not okay, right? That's what it, and it really, like, I had to pull myself, what I made all of the things in my childhood mean that I'm not right, I'm wrong, I should not be the way I am. So that was the birth of me being shy, because, like, I'm not okay. So I'm not sure can I say this? Is this okay? I was constantly checking myself and trying to be being very hypervigilant of trying to read you. I'm very good at reading people because I've been doing it for 40 years obsessively. Reading, like, how should I be so that you will accept me?
Yeah.
Right? And it's been a long process of doing shit tons of therapy, and also this understanding ADHD and understanding all the reasons why I have been doing it. And in the result of it, I'm no longer shy because I accept myself. I'm okay at making mistakes. I'm okay if you don't like me. I'm okay if somebody doesn't like what I'm saying over there. I'm okay with it. But that was not the case. And that was why I was an addict, because there was one of the reasons, such a fear that I'm not okay. And then I put something on top of that pain. Like, I often describe my addiction as this hole in me. There's a hole in me that I need to fill.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it felt, like alcohol pouring something into this bottomless pit.
Yeah.
Right. And the only time it ever felt like it was fulfilled for a second was when I was completely shit-faced, or when I stuffed myself so, like, physically so full of food that I can't put anything in there, or that I'm in a very deep connection with somebody. But the second I sober up, or the food is digested, or that person goes away, the emptiness is even greater. Mm-hmm. That's how it felt like. And we often hear these sentences in recovery, like, connection is the opposite of addiction, right? Mm-hmm. And that is so true for me. That hole in me was from my origin story, what I made my environment mean that I'm not something that is worth connecting to, right? So I was trying to fill that up with something. But in recovery and in doing a lot of my self-healing and self-discovery and a lot of therapy, I've been able to fill that hole in myself. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I can show up as who I am and talk about my story and my experiences and not be afraid that I'm not accepted because of it.
You're right about, what was the sentence you said? Connection is the opposite to addiction. Mm-hmm. I've never actually thought about those words before until you've just said them. Mm. But I have heard it in the rooms a lot. And that's right. Like that's what I've filled that hole with is the connections like this that we get there. Mm-hmm. I've never ever thought about it like that, but it's so true.
That's why 12-step programs, they work mm-hmm. for many people. Obviously, we can't ever promise that everything works for everybody, but it does work for many people, and it has worked for me, because in those rooms, in 12-step meetings and the programs, it builds a support structure, uh-huh. and there's unconditional love. Like, I always say that I got more acceptance in the first meeting I ever went to, in the 25 minutes of first meeting I ever went to, than in my whole of my childhood. And I didn't even say anything. I just sat in the corner and cried. I literally did for months in the first meetings, because I've never felt such a shit. There's something about shared pain and coming together and sharing that pain and talking about it. Mm-hmm. And then strength, hope, and experiences, and hearing other people talk about similar kind of pain. We all have different stories. You know, we have these war stories. Some people have lost everything. Some people, like myself, haven't lost anything really. I lost myself. It was internal. But the pain is the same. The emptiness is the same, that we're all filling up with the substances, be whatever our drug of choice is. For some of us, it's food. Some of us, it's relationship. Some of it's, whatever, but we fill it up with something, because fundamentally there's a belief that I'm not enough and I need something in me.
One of the things I definitely want to ask you is, so if your face drooping wasn't enough to make you stop, or your almost out of body experience, what was the final straw for you? When did you decide to stop, and why?
Right. So back then, it was, like I said, it was just not, like, I don't know, it felt like I grew out of it, which I'm really happy. But
so did you stop for a while?
Well, I did stop for a while, but I didn't realize that I was an addict. I was just like, this isn't fun anymore, and I wasn't enjoying the drugs at all. And I was just like, I was just doing it because everybody else were doing it, and then a few of my friends wanted to sort of start changing lifestyles, so it just sort of happened. But I was still drinking like an idiot, and smoking weed and things like that for many years, and doing coke once in a while, and it wasn't going anywhere. And then so a few years ago I stopped alcohol. Like I said, it was lockdown started, and I realized, like, then it really hit me, like, I'm a fucking alcoholic. Like, I'm a functional alcoholic. All these years I never clued in how I was using it as a medicine, and how I was using it to fix me, how I feel, and and helping me to connect with people and mask my social awkwardness and all of it. I had no idea. It's funny how we can have these deep patterns and not clue in ourselves at all. So, but then
because we're pretty intelligent people as well, and we miss the most obvious things sometimes. It's crazy.
I know. And it's like lying to ourselves, like to myself, like how I could just, so that sort of, and I stopped alcohol. And by then, like my hangovers, I would have half a bottle of wine and be hangover for 4 days. It was just like not worth it anymore. And also what I thought after I stopped alcohol, because it was quite easy, it felt like I always used alcohol to, mask my sensory sensitivities, but I also helped me to feel confident enough to talk to people.
Right.
And by then I started to, heal out of my shyness.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like I needed it anymore, because now I can talk to anybody. Like I don't need that substance in me to feel like I can be confident enough. But then there was weed. And that was it was the hardest one. It's funny, like doing all those crazy drugs back in the day, but and alcohol, it was easy to stop. Weed, but I couldn't stop it. And I was like, I don't want to smoke this anymore. Like I'm just like, not doing anything. I'm not doing the things I want to do. And my business was starting to take off, and I had an amazing life and amazing friends, but I still felt like I needed to just run home and just get stoned. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I could start feeling this connection that it was actually giving me instead of connection. And I couldn't stop it. And I was like, there's something here. And I still didn't understand that I'm an addict. Really didn't understand it until I went to 12-step rooms. That's why I cried for months in the first meetings.
Did you?
I cried, and I went to those women's only meetings in Newcastle back then. And I was just crying and crying, because what I was understanding when I was listening and being in that environment, I was understanding, I was letting myself feel the pain that was in me, that I was masking with the weed, which I didn't let myself feel. I just had to get stoned so that I didn't feel the pain. And then I went into these rooms and I couldn't hide from it anymore. And then there was a place where it was allowed for me to be that messed up, because I was like, always, the more messed up I was inside, the more I was trying to put this facade up into the world, how great I am, and how, like, look at me over here. And like, just this connection with who I was really and how I was feeling and how I was showing myself to the world was just getting so big, and I just couldn't stand it anymore. So in a way, it was kind of rock bottom, but just like, getting stoned, which is very different experience to some other people. But it's like, what I understood through my recovery journey is that there's different, it's what comes with addiction is unmanageability. Our life has become unmanageable. And my life didn't ever, even back in my 20s, maybe a little bit then, but in the recent decades, it wasn't unmanageable. I was holding great jobs. I had my business. I was successful. I had friends, and nothing was going away. And I was managing life, but I wasn't managing myself. I wasn't managing my emotions. I wasn't managing anything that was going inside. And that's what I needed to treat with the weed. But I couldn't, I just knew that I want to know me. I don't want to know this version of me who needs to show this thing to the world. I want to know who I am under all this pain. And and then in recovery, then finally I went to those meetings for a long time, and I couldn't stop, and I was just crying. I needed to get enough of that pain out to be strong enough and to feel the support of these rooms enough to build myself strong enough that I can live without this veil between me and my emotions, between me and, because life will always bring us things that will feel dysregulating and feel difficult. And I wanted to be able to be strong enough to handle them on my own without needing to fix it, needing to fix how I feel. So that's how I got into recovery.
Do you think that's an ADHD trait as well? Because I always feel the need to fix things immediately, regardless of what it is, whether it be an argument with somebody, a feeling I have, anything. If I feel this urgency to deal with everything there and then,
like quickly.
And I wonder if that's got anything to do with it. Because I thought, I can only speak about my own experiences, but I thought drugs were helping me be a better version of me for years, and they weren't. They were completely destroying who I was.
perhaps it is an ADHD trait because my energy moves so quickly. So, and my emotions, all my energy is huge, right? The way I there's just a lot of it, and emotions are energy. So my emotions, they come and I need to talk about it. I need to fix it. Something needs to happen. There is an urgency in my energy often, in the way I feel, in the way I want to communicate, in the way I often feel the world moves way too slow. Like, come on, guys, like catch up now. Let's get this done, right? But it also can be a nervous system state because if there's safety in the nervous system, right, when we rest and digest instead of fight or flight, then I can just be. I can just be and I can feel, and I don't need to, some kind of action doesn't need to happen. I can be with, and that's what I've been able to start giving myself, is this slowness. I don't need to run around and do something all the time. I can actually just be and give my emotions also space to be felt.
Yeah.
Instead of needing to fix them because they're there and they're making me feel all sorts of things that I don't want to feel.
Any other addictions?
Don't get me started. Yeah, so it's interesting now, couple years in
because you've got 2 years clean.
2 years and a bit clean of drugs. No, 4 years alcohol and 2 years of weed, and I, I know that I will. Okay, this one. So I stopped alcohol 4 years ago. And then there was a big life event, and that happened. And then I was like, I'm going to celebrate this. I bought myself concert tickets, and I was at one of my favorite bands.
Who?
Doesn't matter. And there's one of these massive concerts, and I was so happy, and I was so free. And so I'm there celebrating on my own. Like, I just wanted this, like, this is for me. And then I was like, I've been without alcohol for so long and so easily. Like, it doesn't pull me the way it did. So I can have a couple of ciders. And I had one cider, it was great. And then I had another cider. And halfway through that other cider, I was like, this force came through me. Like, I've never felt anything like it. And it said, now we're going to get fucking wasted.
Yeah.
And I was like, took my phone and ready to call people. And I'm like, I don't have any people in my phone to call. And I was so happy I don't have drinking buddies anymore.
Yeah.
Because if I had, I would have called them. I would have left the fucking concert and I would have been out in the town and see you later in 4 days. And that scared me. I put the cider down. I was like, right, okay, I understand now. I am powerless over my addiction. I cannot have 1 or 2 ciders. That's not a thing that I can ever do. And I'm really happy that I had that experience with alcohol, because it doesn't interest that drug, which it is. It doesn't interest me. But weed was so hard to stop. And I'm really happy that I had that experience with alcohol, because otherwise I would have already bullshitted myself into smoking just one spliff. It doesn't matter, just today.
Yeah.
And that's what the addiction mind does. It's like, of course you can. Just do it. It doesn't matter. You're not going to harm anybody. Because I didn't harm anybody when I was just smoking on my sofa and just like daydreaming about worlds that might or might not happen. I wasn't hurting anybody else except for myself. And having that experience with alcohol, I know that I can't ever have just one puff of a spliff. Never. Because it will take me and I will be completely fucking out of it again. So I'm happy. So that's given me, that and these recovery places have given me clear and strong boundaries. And I work very well with clear and strong boundaries, I have learned about myself.
Right.
Because I do have using thoughts sometimes. Like somebody said to me once, we're addicts, we will have using thoughts. That's okay, but as long as we don't act on them.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes my mind says, oh, let's just smoke a little spliff. It doesn't matter. I'm just like, does matter. Shut up. Not doing that. So that's very easy now. But then what I've now learned about when I'm so easily out of active addiction, all the other ways my addiction comes. The same force still thrives through me, and it takes over my mind, it takes over my thoughts, and then it takes over my addictions. And I self-soothe with food. I fix how I really want to fix how I feel with relationships and with men. And I'm really learning how and fantasy. Oh my God, there's such fantasy creations of how things should be, or they could be, or they're going to be in my head. And what I've learned about the fantasy creations as well, it's a form of, fixing how you feel. And it like self-soothing through, like, there's a fear that I'm not sure about how this is going to go. And then I create this fantasy of how it's going to be. And that soothes that part of me. So all those are my ways of being very much an addict. And I've really been thinking about it. Like, if I can have such clear and strong boundaries with drugs, why can't I have the same fucking boundaries with cake? Like, what's going on here? Like, right? And it's really isn't, like, I have digestion issues, perhaps something to do with all the amphetamine bombs that I've inhaled.
Yeah,
And, like, all
I
of
can
those,
relate to that.
right? Like, it's not okay how my belly works. And I know that if I follow a strict diet of certain things, I feel very well, and I feel very unwell when I don't. And those are my addiction. Like, give me some bread, please, and give me cake and sugar, which will make me feel very unwell. And so I've been trying to now put those same kind of clear and strong boundaries there as well. But it's still a work in progress.
I was going to say, how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
Who was the band you went to go and see to celebrate?
Ed Sheeran.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah, Mr. What's her name?
Taylor Swift. I've seen Ed Sheeran.
Sorry,
I saw Ed Sheeran at St. James's Park.
Oh yeah, I loved it. Somebody just completely shamed me after it. Like, what's the matter? Anyway, so I'm like, I'm not sharing that. So I started the steps a year into my recovery.
Right.
Which I'm really happy about now. That I remember being really frustrated because I want everything now, and it should happen. Like, why is it not here? Because I'm here and it should happen right now. But there was just nobody there that I felt like, I want you to be my sponsor. Just nobody. And then year in, it just clicked, and it was like, oh, you're the person. And then when I started the steps, it was like, I'm gonna finish them in a month, and they were like, just calm down, like, crazy lady. Like,
I remember looking at them and thinking, oh, there's 8 hours work there, easy.
I know. And then I always do this. This is such a pattern. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I'm gonna do everything at once, and then actually in a month, I'm like, oh, I'm so bored of this. Like,
yeah.
But it's now I'm at step 8 right now, which is them starting to make amends. So you start writing the list.
Yeah, I'm scared of that one.
Oh, me too, mate. Oh my God, I procrastinated like no tomorrow. I can see your discomfort. But yeah, that was the hardest one for me, or 8 and 9. 9 is when you actually go and make amends.
Isn't 9 when you do it? All right. So is it 8 making the list, is it?
Yes, which I love that they made it that way.
Right.
Because I've completely blocked, I have had to block the step 9 out of my awareness completely, so that I can be as honest as I can in step 8 and not let those worries and stresses and concerns coming into it. Because the step 8 this is for me, really. All of them are for me. Yes, even the one when I go and apologize for people, it will give to them as well. But even that is for me. Yeah. Right.
It is a selfish program.
Yeah. For me, selfish. I don't know if it's selfish, because selfish would mean, for me, what selfish means is I don't care about.
Right. Okay. Well, so yeah, I was speaking to somebody about this the other day, and I was saying, like, I think it is a very selfish program, but I think it has to be in the fact that. But that selfishness will eventually have such a positive effect on everybody around you as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to just fix yourself and not care about anything else. That's what I mean by selfish.
No, totally agree. Yes. So, and like, I remember stressing about step 8 at step 1 and step 2 and step all of them. And my sponsor kept saying to me, but you will be ready by then. Don't worry about it now. He was absolutely right. I wasn't ready to do what I'm doing now back then, but because the steps are so beautifully constructed and it's such a well thought system and there's a step guide, and the way that it helps you to look at yourself, look at your addiction patterns, but also inside you, what is the reasons of those addiction patterns. And I'm so happy that I did wait for 2, or it just happened by coincidence, higher power moments, that I'm 2 years and a bit in, because it's bringing up so much unresolved energy.
Right.
It's bringing up, because it is, I'm peeling these onion layers of finding yourself in there. And for me, peeling that onion layer, there's a lot of me that I don't like, right? So I'm having to face those parts of me, but with support, right? We're not doing this alone. That's why the program works. And that's why it's so beautiful, because there's the meetings and the people that you meet in the meetings and your sponsor. And there's a structure around you to really face yourself. As a best therapy I've ever done. I've done a lot.
I've never done any therapy.
Oh, mate, what's the matter with you?
I don't know. I've always quite liked the idea of therapy. A lot, to tell you the truth, even when I was in my using days.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because at the time perhaps I saw it as that'll fix me. Do you know what I mean? But I am open to it. I've just never.
I've worked with a lot of coaches as well, and specifically with ADHD and autism coaches. That's helped me a lot to build my life in a way that it works for me. I do recommend it.
See, when I got diagnosed with ADHD, the psychiatrist told me that I was already implementing a load of things to work around it. Like,
cool.
I knew what I could and couldn't, because I ran a business, and I knew what I could and I knew what I was and wasn't capable of being able to sit and do.
Yeah.
So I hired somebody to do the things that I couldn't. The very simple things that would only take me an hour a day. And anybody looking at the business as a whole would have thought, hey, that guy's a waste of money, but he wasn't, because he was really keeping the whole business running.
I know exactly what you mean. I have 3 different assistants doing, they work like a few hours a week, max, all of them. But like the things, like one is, her main job is basically be my memory, because I have very little working memory, and I can't, like, I have this workshop and this person, that client, and who's paid and where's which dates. And for me to hold that information in my head, which is just common sense for normal people with actual memory. But for me, it takes up so much of my energy to try to hold the hold. And now I can dump it all on her, and she knows it all. And then she tells me what to do, basically. And then there's somebody who takes care of my social media, and another one does that sliver of the business. So in step 8, it was quite beautiful, because again, the stuff that I've done to people that I need to and want to apologize and acknowledge myself. It was like being bitchy and talking nasty. I didn't really do anything horrific,
right?
Steal from people or abuse people. It was really just words. And there was a big threshold at getting to this step, because I was so ashamed of the way I have acted. But as writing, like, that's why I had to really isolate the step 8 and not even think about, because I don't have to, nobody's going to force me to apologize to anybody. I can choose the ones, because it says in the step, like, only to the ones that it's actually helpful. Like, I don't want to go and sit my parents down and tell them the whole of my drug use. Like, that's not going to help them. That's going to just hurt them, I don't need to do anything. We can really choose which ones are going to be helpful and in what way. So writing, that's why I've been able to write the steps, step 8, the list of amendments just for myself, and really look at it. And then actually it wasn't as bad as I thought, first of all. Yes, I was bitchy and I was nasty to people, but not, there was 15 people that I could think of. And I was like, I thought there's hundreds of them. Like, I was making it I was such a horrible bitch, which I was. Like, don't get me wrong. I was very reactive, and I was very like, if you annoyed me, I got to tell you how fucking annoying you are. Like, I wasn't able to take responsibility for my emotions in any kind of way and just blaming them on other people. So and we also talk about something like living amends, right? I don't do those things anymore. I'm very good nowadays on taking responsibility for my emotions. And if I get triggered, I take a breath and I remove myself from the situation and I process when I need to process, and then I come and have the conversation. Not like it used to be, like, fuck off, like just shouting at people's faces just because, you know, I have an emotion, it's your fucking fault. So that's good. And then it was really interesting when I wrote the step. It was around when I started to write the step, it was around my second clean time birthday anniversary. And I had done a share in one of the meetings. In that meeting, I just cried. So it's 20 minutes share. And I cried the whole way through of it. And it was an interesting experience. I love doing those shares because they really, they give me a sort of a place to see where I'm at. I would like to do them every year in the biggest meeting I can find because it scares me the most. And I did it the first year when I was clean. And I remember walking up to there, and I was terrified, not just scared, like deep terror in my system. And why it was because back then speaking in front of people was scary as hell to me, but also what had happened before, leading up to that day, when I got asked to do the share in front of, you know, what, there's like 40 people in this room, and my mind started to like craft this perfect share. Like, oh, I was gonna write it down, and I was gonna like take days and days and days to make it the perfect share there is. And then I realized this is exactly what I was doing in my addiction as well. Like building this facade up, like people see me as this perfect thing. I was like, I can't do that. I can't plan any of it. And then I stopped all the thoughts that wanted to plan the share, and I was just gonna wing it. And that was bringing me so much terror to showing up in front of these people and show me. It was so scary. And then I did it, and it was beautiful. Like the response from people was just acceptance and love, and, you know, they got something out of it. And it was just like, oh, I was like, oh my God, I felt so good. And having that experience a year before, now going to the share, I knew that that's going to be it. Once I do it, I'm going to feel great, and people are going to get something out of it, and all of it. And then that's exactly what I did. I showed up there, and I hadn't planned anything. And then as soon as I opened my mouth, I started to cry. And I was like, fuck, all these emotions are going to come out. Oh, shit. And that was where I was at the time. Like, I needed to let myself be seen in the mess of my emotions. Because that was one of the things that I was masking in my recovery, was how messy my emotions were and how incapable I was holding myself in them. So that's what I did. I let myself be seen, and it was like a full love fest. Like, it was amazing. The people were crying, and it was just like, it was so great. And then I started to write, my step A. So I looked at honestly of all these people that I've hurt and been horrible to. And then I also, in that share, I was talking about the pain, you know, because that's what I really recognize that is similar, that we all share, is the pain as addicts. I have this emptiness and the pain, and then we want to mask it, and we want to fix how we feel and all of that. So then I started to write, and I had that experience of seeing my addiction from another way. And then I started to write about the dynamics between me and my mom. And she's the one that I was really nasty to in my active addiction. Right. Really, really nasty to. And I remember, like, I would steal ornaments of her, fucking shelves and things, and she's like, what are you doing? Like, don't take my stuff, that's stealing. And I would laugh at her face. And I remember enjoying her pain. And when I was writing, I was so ashamed of it. I've always been really ashamed of how I acted. Never apologized yet. And when I was writing it, I could see that. Like, just week before, I was sharing about all the, like, how I was ODing and my low self-esteem and my self-worth because they didn't see me and they couldn't save me from myself. Bless them, not to any fault of their own. And then in my active addiction, it was this, like, me taking back that power of, like, now I, like, who's the fucking strong one? Who can now? Like, that's how I felt. Like, I get to hurt you because you hurt me. And it was
healthy.
It was so painful to see that, like 20 years later, to see that, to write that down, but that needed to come out. Then and that opened up like floodgates in me, and so much old stuff was like pouring out of me. And this is what I mean, that why I was so happy that I wrote the step 2 years in, because if I had done that like soon after getting clean, I would not be strong enough to not fix those feelings with drugs. So I'm really happy that I did that. And that's the thing about self-discovery and doing any therapy or steps or however you do to dig into yourself, what your pain is that you've been avoiding. Yes, it's painful because the unresolved energy that you've been holding inside of you will start coming up, right? We will start coming up. And it was rocky going for a couple of weeks there, but I'm strong enough now to hold myself in those when that energy comes up. And I always know that afterwards I feel great. And that's why also today I can come and be at your podcast and be excited about it. Because like every day, every time I do things, every time I write more of the steps, every time I look myself deeper, there's more me that I find. And there's less of this shy Leena who is afraid of showing herself. And the strength of me starts to come up more and more. Steps are so beautiful because they build you up while you dig into yourself and into the reasons why you were a raging addict you were or are.
We admitted that we were powerless over our addictions, that our lives had become unmanageable.
That's it. So step 1 is about admitting that we have become powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. And that was a really wake-up call for me. Because like I said, like it took me years to actually understand that I'm a functional alcoholic and I'm a functional drug addict. Because like I said, I had this image that you are in the, gutter. And then you're an addict or an alcoholic. And I didn't understand that I can be dysfunctional, I can be successful, and I can be a normal human being and still be a very, very deeply an addict. So it was a lot about that, just like looking at myself and being honest. That's the wording in it, right? Being honestly looked at ourselves. Yeah, it was such a wake-up call to look at myself honestly and admit that I'm powerless over this. And then like I said, with the alcohol, that was that experience that really helped me, that I cannot will myself. I need to have strong and clear boundaries, and that's the only thing that will help me. And in the beginning, I had to cut ties with everybody who smoked, who I knew that knew anything about weed, because that was my way of keeping those boundaries. Now I have friends who smoke. I just ask them to not smoke around me. And like alcohol, now I can go to a pub and be with drunk people, and it's not a problem at all. And I know weed will be that eventually. As well.
I can do that. I just leave when they start repeating themselves.
Exactly. That's it. It's like, mate, I've heard that 3 times now. I'll see you later. Exactly. And the unmanageability of my life, that was a big one as well. Like, because that really like highlighted it to me that you can be a functional addict. That unmanageability is all inside of me. And I try to use these substances or let them use me to manage myself. So, and it was interesting. I recently read the step guide again. And now I just replaced the addiction. When it talks about addiction, I just replaced it with my addictions now. And I learned a lot about it again, like... And admitting that I'm powerless over my cake addiction, and like I can't will myself into stopping. I need to admit that I'm powerless, and this thing just runs through me. Like I need to ask for help. I need to build structures and systems and processes in place for me to function normally and not hurt myself.
We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
Yeah, what's your view on this higher power business?
I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. I don't know, I'm really not sure. This is probably about to be the longest I've ever thought about it. It depends what you mean by higher power, because I'm technically an atheist.
So am I.
But if that higher power could be connection or something like that, then I get it. I've not really thought about it too much. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I'm very allergic to religion.
Yeah.
Religion in Finland is very one of a lot of control and rules, and I hate rules. And if somebody tries to put me in you need to be like this, I'm like, fuck off, and I go as far as I can. So that's what I really dislike about religions, because it often comes with controlling powers, a lot of rules. So that's why this was a little bit alien for me, but it's not religious. It's spiritual.
Right.
And that I'm very spiritual. I do a lot of meditation, all sorts of woohoo things. And so that to me, and understanding for me, even before doing these 12 steps, for me, what God or this higher power was energy. I understand it as energy, because to me, there isn't any dude on the sky who puts rules and tells me that I only get to go and hang out with him if I do certain things that somebody wrote in a book 1,000 million years ago. Like, fuck that. But Einstein proved to us 100 years ago that everything is energy.
Yeah.
So I'm energy, you're energy, this is energy, everything is energy. And this is, to me, is God, is energy.
Yeah.
Everything's made out of it. And we can all, create a healthy environment in our own bodies so that more of that energy can flow through us. And that to me that's my higher power, is energy. And then I love this 12-step way of seeing that, is this something greater than myself that I can give my problems to. I can't, because my mind, my little human mind has tried to fix me for many, many years. And it hasn't quite worked, because there's still something in me. There's something that needs to be fixed, because I have that deep belief that there's something in me to be fixed. But what these steps teach me is the surrender, that I can choose to surrender to this flow of life, which is a proven fact. We are alive because of this energy running through us, right? So I can surrender to that, and choose to surrender to the flowing life force energy through me, through everything, instead of the addiction flow.
Right.
This force that runs through me, which takes me into shit places. That's I have proven to myself. If I follow that, I will get into problems. I get to hurt myself. I get to hurt others. It doesn't get me into a nice place. But when I surrender to this thing greater than me, I feel held, I feel supported, I feel connected, I feel like a part of something, which is the fundamental need that all of us have. It's a survival need that humans have, is to be part of something. Because in caveman time, which our brain is still functioning from, and our nervous system, we needed to be part of that tribe. And if we were not connected, if we were not taken care of, because we humans, we're born into this world as these helpless things. So we need to be connected or we will die. And the same program still runs through our nervous system and our brain. So if the primary connections in our lives isn't one of supporting, then there's a survival fear in our system. So it's like, that's what I get from this higher power, is that connection. I am always connected to this. The only thing that takes me away from it is my beliefs. When I sink into believing that I'm alone and I need to be fixed. Yeah. Did that make any sense?
Perfect sense, yeah.
Cool.
I read a book recently called The Power of Now.
Oh, we can talk another 3 hours about that. and it's so good.
That very much explained things in a similar way than you just have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get that 100%.
Oh, I love people like Eckhart Tolle that can talk about these deeply spiritual principles in a way that it's not this like, and then there were angels, which is great for some people, but then there are some logical people that can't.
It's weird, because I found that really easy to digest, and some people I've showed it to are like, "What the fuck's this rubbish?"
Yeah, I know.
And I was like, "Well, the alternative is there's a man in the sky that does everything." That's like,
right. Exactly. But you know what? I tried to read that book 10, 15 years ago, and I was like, I like it, but I can't take it in.
Full disclosure, it was an audio book.
Oh, yeah. No, that too. But even that. But now I'm obsessed with it. And I'm like, yes, exactly. Yes. So it needs to, there needs to be an opening in us for that teachings or that information to come in.
The third one is, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him.
Yeah, and that was really interesting, that step, because to me it was like, the decision. We came to believe, we made a decision to turn our will. And I'm such a strong person, right? Like my will runs strong.
Right.
Right. And I'm so stubborn. And when I'm like, I get something like with this autistic power of like, this is how we do it. And I put all my ADHD power into it. Then it's just like, and I'm trying to will myself into controlling and manipulating in situations, other people and myself. And what this has taught me is a constant, and it needs to be a constant decision, not just once on a Tuesday that now I release my will and then something happens and I'm back in controlling it. And then we're like, why is this not working? No, because your own will and your own control patterns came in again. So it's a constant decision again and again, turning my will over and trusting that this power greater than me can restore my sanity. So yeah, that really helps. Like as a recovering control freak, it really really helps, that one, and a work in progress for sure. And then step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, right? Like you look at your fears, you look at your anger, you look at your shame, you look at it all. It's a beautiful process of blasting through the walls that you built for yourself. And it, like myself, I needed to fix my emotions, and here I honestly look at them and I look what I've created out of them.
We admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs.
Well, that's basically just reading out the step 4.
Yeah.
I don't really get to step 5. Just do that. I guess it's really just like, no, there was something about admitting it. It's like, I'm not just, and to be fair, when I recently read through my step work, and I realized that because I've done so much therapy and I've done so much self-discovery and self-healing, and I'm rather obsessed with it.
Yeah.
When I went into this, I was like, I know how to do this. And I'm such a cocky bitch, like just like, oh yeah, I got this, instead of actually letting myself feel and be in it. So I think that's what the step 5 is after, is to really like, I admit that this is where I have been.
We were entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character.
Yes, that's again, where I constantly need to readjust my behavior and my old patterns, because I have such a deep-rooted belief in me that I am not okay. It's still there after all this work that I've done. And yes, I'm getting more healthy in the way that I manage it, but it's still there. And I want to will myself into fixing and finding all these ways of making myself better, instead of just surrendering. And I'm okay the way I am. There's nothing wrong in me. There's nothing needing to be fixed. I've tried that for 30-something years, like just I'm okay the way I am. But it's like you said earlier about needing something happening now, and it needs to be fixed, and quick.
Like when I went sober, and 48 hours later, everybody wasn't treating me differently, and I was annoyed at them. I was like, well, I'm sober now. So like, you've been sober for less than a minute, calm down.
Exactly.
And you've also told me that you've been going sober 100 times before and never done it. So excuse us if we still think you're an arsehole.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, ready to allow this power, this for me, and energy to come, and me surrendering and opening to the possibility that all of this can be taken off me. I can't do it. I've shown that to myself. I can I can do all the therapy, and it is helping, and it is something that I do recommend everybody doing, because it's beautiful to understand yourself, but not from a place of I need fixing, but from a place of, I am okay the way I am. And somewhere deep down under all of that pain and all the patterns and habits and all of the shit. There is the real you, you know, there's the real me that is there. And I want to get closer to her. And I want to, in every moment of this life, I want to be acting out of from her.
Should we leave it there?
Okay.
I think that's a great place to end.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.